The Yoon administration grants special pardons to ex-President Lee Myung-bak along with other high-profile former political figures. This includes former South Gyeongsang-namdo Province Governor Kim Jong-un, who was jailed for rigging online opinions. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un plans to beef up the regime's national defense. Describing it as the North's core goal, he insists the move is required to prepare for various political shocks in 2023. South Korea set to unveil its first foreign policy strategy for the Indo-Pacific region. On Wednesday, Seoul will announce its own Indo-Pacific strategy centered on promoting freedom, peace, and prosperity. Welcome to New Day at Arirang. Our top story this morning: the Yoon administration granted special pardons ahead of the new year. Included are former President Lee Myung-bak and even officials implicated in the Park Geun-hye administration scandals. Former South Gyeongsang-namdo Province Governor Kim Jong-un was also set free on parole just after midnight Wednesday. Yoon Jung-min reports, and she has the full details.
As widely expected, the names of high-profile politicians were on the list of Yoon Suk-yeol's presidential pardons.
각계의 의견을 수렴해서 신중하게 사면 대상과 범위를 결정했습니다. 이번 사면을 통해 국력을 하나로 모아나가는 계기가 되기 바랍니다.
Among over 1,300 pardoned, two men grabbed attention the most: former conservative President Lee Myung-bak and former liberal Gyeongsang-namdo Province Governor Kim Jong-un. Lee was pardoned with reinstatement, meaning his remaining 15-year jail term and unpaid fines are exempted. He was put behind bars for 17 years in 2020 for embezzlement and bribery, but his sentence had been suspended due to health reasons. Former Governor Kim Jong-un, meanwhile, was set free on parole without reinstatement, meaning he cannot run for election until May 2028. Kim was a key aide of former Liberal President Moon Jae-in and was put behind bars for 2 years in 2021 on charges of rigging online opinion posts for political purposes. But the main opposition Democratic Party calls it an unwanted package deal, claiming Lee and Kim's pardons can't be compared, as one man has 15 years of jail time remaining, while the other only had about 5 months left to serve. The ruling People Power Party has fired back, insisting Kim should be ashamed of what he has done. Others on the list was former President Park Geun-hye's chief of staff, Kim Gi-chun, who was found guilty of pressuring a business lobbyist group to provide funds to conservative activists. Also included were former Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan, barred for bribery charges, and 3 former intel agency chiefs, Nam Jae-jun, Lee Byung-gi, and Lee Byung-ho, who were imprisoned for offering off-the-book funds to former President Park. Yoon's special New Year pardons, his second clemency since taking office, takes effect on Wednesday. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has set goals for strengthening national defense. According to Pyongyang state media, the goals were presented during the second day of the Workers' Party meeting on Tuesday, discussing next year's policy direction. The goals were reportedly in response to the challenging situation on the Korean peninsula, as well as the current international political situation. The details have not yet been revealed. Kim also emphasized the need to preserve the North's sovereignty and national interests in the, quote, struggle against the enemy. Amid views that Kim would unveil more details on other areas, including the economy, the state media said that the meeting will continue for a third day. The South Korean military publicly apologized for failing to shoot down North Korean drones that crossed the border. While expressing regret, the Joint Chief of Staff devised plans to better counter such provocations. Kim Bo-kyung has more.
South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff has offered a public apology for failing to shoot down the North Korean drones that crossed over into the South airspace on Monday. On Tuesday afternoon, Lieutenant General Kang Shin-chul said the military acknowledges and regrets its limited capability to detect and shoot down small unmanned aerial vehicles that are 3 meters wide or smaller. The military has vowed to thoroughly check each unit's detection and strike assets and aggressively mobilize them for a stronger defense posture. Kang added that the military will come up with ways to shoot the vehicles without causing damage to civilians by carrying out air defense training and actively employ detection devices along with strike assets.
To boost warfare capabilities, we will establish a drone unit to conduct surveillance and reconnaissance operations that will monitor the enemy's major military facilities. We'll also secure physical and non-physical attack assets along with stealth drones and operate them in an integrated way.
Such remarks come in line with what President Yoon had said during a cabinet meeting on Tuesday morning. Yoon vowed to ramp up South Korea's surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities using military drones by speeding up the establishment of a drone unit and deploying advanced stealth drones. Meanwhile, regarding the issue, the United States has reaffirmed its commitment to the defense of South Korea. According to the Voice of America, a White House National Security Council spokesperson said on Monday local time that the U.S. is aware of reports that 5 North Korean drones crossed the inter-Korean border, also known as the military demarcation line. The spokesperson added that Washington is in close consultation with South Korea on the nature of the incursion, recognizing the need for South Korea to protect its territorial integrity. It said the State Department too has issued a similar response to the North Korean drone incursion. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The South Korean government on Wednesday will announce the full details of the country's first ever unified foreign policy for the Indo-Pacific region. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, the presidential office will release a report on the strategy, followed by a briefing from the foreign ministry. President Yoon has already introduced key elements of the strategy in Cambodia in November. Those elements include freedom, peace and prosperity in the region, which has been gaining strategic importance amid the escalating competition between the United States and China. This strategy comes as part of South Korea's vision to become a global pivotal state that plays an important role in global governance. Government ministries are making progress reports to the president. The Trade Ministry's goal is export growth despite forecasts of a decline. The Ministry of SMEs and Startups plans to focus on digitalization. Shin Ha-young fills us in.
South Korea's trade and business ministries presented their plans for next year to President Yoon on Tuesday, plans aimed at achieving growth despite economic uncertainties. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said it aims to achieve growth in exports next year despite the government's outlook of a decline of 4.5%. To meet the goal, the ministry will seek to bolster exports in promising sectors like nuclear power plants and the defense industry. It's also aiming for the country's exports to reach $680 billion. To achieve this, it's going to come up with policies through the export strategy meeting chaired by President Yoon. With the Ukraine war having exposed vulnerabilities in global supplies of energy, the ministry is also planning to accelerate the revitalization of South Korea's nuclear power ecosystem. The goal is to extend the lives of 7 nuclear plants by next year by providing the industry with support worth 3.5 trillion won, or around $2.7 billion, in the form of equipment and financial aid. To create drivers of future economic growth, it will focus on nurturing the bio-industry and in its role as energy ministry, as well as 5 key industries in the energy sector, including hydrogen and offshore wind. Earlier this morning, President Yoon raised concern about the budget for next year that lawmakers passed last week. He said it lacks measures to support important growth industries like semiconductors. President Yoon also received a briefing on next year's plans from the Ministry of SMEs and Startups, which will be focusing on digitalization. It aims to nurture so-called global unicorn companies, meaning new firms worth more than $1 billion. As part of these efforts, it will select 1,000 digital startups over the next 5 years in the industry of chips, robots, and AI to support those sectors in terms of R&D and help them enter the global market. And with the pandemic having driven more business online, it's also planning to help Korea's traditional markets achieve their own digital transformation. Meanwhile, President Yoon called on the ministries to actively cooperate in 2023.
오늘 우리 산업부와 중기부가 함께 내년도 업무 보고를 하는 이 자리가 기업 간의 상생이 또 부처 간의 이런 유대와 협력, 소통이 바탕이 돼서 이루어질 수밖에 없는 것이기 때문에 산업부와 중기부가 내년에는 더 그 업무 협조를 공고히 하기 당부를 드립니다.
신하영, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now, the South Korean government aims to develop more tech talent. By 2026, the goal is to nurture 1 million prodigies in the digital sector. Shin-yeon provides us a glimpse of what's to come, making it all the more futuristic as she faster reports using an AI-generated voice recording.
Using AI, flying drones, operating robots. These are the basic things taught at this elementary school.
Unlike other elementary schools, we learn how to program software and handle AI. I personally like programming. I entered myself into programming competitions. This shocked many because I was one of the youngest contestants.
Located in a small county in Gyeongsang-namdo Province, any elementary school adapted an AI curriculum in 2016, aiming to raise its students' digital literacy. As of now, there are some 560 other elementary schools like this one, all aiming to teach AI and software programming as regular subjects by 2025.
Our students perform much better in computer or IT classes when they entered middle school compared to other elementary school graduates. That's because they're familiar with AI and programming. First and second graders play with robots during recess. Third graders learn how to make games using software. We make sure AI is part of their daily routine.
Though it may be best to learn how to use AI, robots, and software from a young age, it's never too late to become a digital prodigy. Here at the Innovation Academy, even adults can learn how to become more tech-savvy.
How? With no set textbooks, no professors, no expensive tuition fees, and no graduate degrees. It's called 42 Seoul. Back in 2019, the Ministry of Science and ICT created the school, using the world's first computer science academy of this kind, 42 in Paris, as a benchmark. Here, students learn from each other. They graduate only after 2 years of projects that get harder and harder.
I enrolled in this academy because I want to become a developer. Nowadays, companies aim to recruit developers with high skill sets and practical experience, rather than prestigious university degrees. I think 42 Seoul read this trend perfectly. Its innovative educational programs like this can create candidates who will land jobs in digital companies.
South Korea hopes to change up the country's education methods so that more students are comfortable with new tech, like AI and the metaverse. In the next 5 years, more schools will have software education, AR and VR at the core of their curriculum.
신예은, 아리랑 뉴스.
It's time for On Point, where we connect with experts to look into some of the key issues in the spotlight right now. Electric vehicle maker Tesla dropped in value by 70% since November last year. The world's most valuable car company is set to record its worst annual stock performance as CEO Elon Musk continues to raise eyebrows with his experiment with the social media platform Twitter, as well as falling demand for Tesla EVs amid difficult economic conditions. There are many questions hanging over the future of the two companies, quite literally as Musk hung up on journalists mid-question, according to CNN. And, well, we turn to Tae Sang-mi, professor at Ewha School of Business, to help us understand what's going on. Good morning to you, Professor Tae. Thank you so much for joining us again. And my first question to you is, well, what's really going to happen with Twitter after 57% of Twitter users voted for Musk to step down, which he did, of course. Who's going to be the next leader of the social media giant?
Actually, whoever becomes CEO will have to work with Musk, right? So actually, when Musk took over the Twitter, he wants his workers to be more hardcore, which means he's expecting them to work long hours with much less time off or freedom out of office. In addition, the 2 years new CEO will have to deal with all the problems that come with running a financially struggled social network. So Twitter actually was barely profitable when Musk took over it. So I think now the situation became worse. So I think Musk will looking for the person who can work very hard, profit-oriented and efficiency-oriented.
Right. So, well, do you think Elon Musk's brief stint as CEO of Twitter is going to leave a lasting impact on the company? He tried making a couple of changes, doesn't he, in terms of policy?
Recently, Twitter was actually called out by San Francisco's Department of Building Inspection for illegally installing makeshift bedrooms in Twitter's San Francisco headquarters. So regarding this, Musk actually tweeted that it was designed to help tired employees. So I think Musk will likely expect any new CEO to sleep at the office too. So actually, the new CEO got to work with the Musk, so that I think this kind of operation style could be reflected on Twitter's operation as well.
I see. And well, regarding the future of Tesla, Musk said that there is stormy weather ahead, but then there is going to be sunshine thereafter. I mean, do you share this kind of optimism? Do you think Tesla's stocks, do you think they're going to bounce back once the Twitter situation is settled?
As a CEO for 3 companies, Tesla, SpaceX, and Twitter, it is obvious that Musk could not focus on managing Tesla as a CEO. So, of course, there are other factors such as economic depression negatively influenced Tesla's stock price. But if we look at as the comments from shareholders like Leo Kirkwan, the Tesla's 3rd largest individual shareholder, demanded that Musk step down as a Tesla CEO. Actually, he mentioned that Musk abandoned Tesla, and Tesla has no CEO currently working. And Kirkwan wrote on Twitter, Tesla needs a CEO who works steadily every day and deserves such a CEO. So based on this, shareholders want Musk back to Tesla and focus on Tesla, which means that is could be helpful when that the situation will get better when Musk returning back to Tesla management after the Twitter situation is settled.
I see. Well, Professor Choi Sang-mi of Ewha Business School, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get a look at the news from around the world. And for this, joining us from our news centre is Lee Seung-jae. Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Seung.
Now, let's start off in Russia, where President Vladimir Putin delivered the Kremlin's response to a Western price cap on Russian oil.
That's right. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday signed a decree that from February 1st will ban the supply of crude oil and oil products for 5 months to countries that imposed a price cap. That the latest decree was published on a government portal and the Kremlin website and was a direct response to what Moscow called actions that are unfriendly and contradictory to international law by the United States and foreign states and international organizations joining them. Now, the decree also includes a clause that allows for Putin to overrule the ban in special cases. Earlier this month, the G7, European Union, and Australia agreed to a $60 per barrel price cap on Russian crude oil transported by sea in response to Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Now over to Taiwan now, where the democratically governed island is extending its compulsory military service to 1 year from the previous 4 months, starting from 2024. Now, according to President Tsai Ing-wen on Tuesday, the move comes as China has been ramping up military, diplomatic, and economic pressure on Taiwan to assert its sovereignty claims. Tsai added that under the current military system, Taiwan is unable to cope with China's rising military threat, especially if Beijing launched a rapid attack on the island. Now, in the U.S., the death toll from its nearly week-long winter storm has risen to at least 64, with western New York accounting for more than half the deaths, with 33, including 28 in Buffalo alone. Buffalo, the second largest city in New York State, stands as ground zero with more than 1.2 meters of snow dumped on the area since last Friday. With another 30 centimeters forecast on Tuesday, efforts to clear streets and reaching stranded residents in need of medical care have been difficult. And now finally to Peru. The country kicked off its annual slugfest on Sunday, aimed at settling old scores and starting the new year afresh. Called Tekanakui, the festival is celebrated each year during the holidays, and now the community members say it resolves conflicts and improves relationships. Judges and referees are on hand at each event to declare the winners in fights over issues ranging from affairs to financial and legal disputes. The festival is also held against a backdrop of music, drinking, and generally festive atmosphere.
Good morning. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with the latest weather updates. Now, parts of the central regions are seeing light snow flurries this morning, so please drive with care. Then another bout of snow clouds will form over the west coast, along with colder air dropping about 1 centimeter of snowfall overnight. Well, we had a brief warm-up yesterday afternoon, but afternoon highs in Seoul will plunge below zero again for the first time in 3 days. So there will not be much of a difference between morning lows and afternoon highs today. Most parts will be seeing highs that are 2 to 5 degrees lower this afternoon compared to yesterday. So Seoul will be topping out at just -2 degrees Celsius, Daejeon at 1 degree. Gwangju will be topping out at 3 degrees Celsius. And sadly, most parts will be seeing high levels of ultra-fine dust for most of the day today. Now, skies will be mainly sunny for the timing, so more dry air will flow into the country. Not to mention, most of the East Coast is under a dry weather advisory. Now, temperature-wise, we'll have much more bearable time, or temperatures that is just in time for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. With that in mind, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe. Well, that wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Thursday's edition at the same time. Please stay with us for more updates throughout the day, but have a lovely day or evening wherever you are, and take care.
꽃 피